The select board and is being conducted via Zoom and in person. Speakers on the agenda may be participating remotely, and the chair may allow for the public to provide comment. The board would like to hear public comments, and if there is further action that is required by the board, the chair will add the matter as appropriate to a forthcoming agenda. Depending on the comment, the board may, if they are able to, within the confines of open meeting law, respond with information as opposed to needing to deliberate on the matter. Please note that while an option for remote attendance or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting will not be suspended if terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast to individual attendees unless otherwise required by law. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, so please take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All the materials for this meeting, except any executive session materials, are available on Board Docs, and we recommend that members of the public follow the agenda as posted on Board Docs unless I note otherwise. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment after members have spoken, the chair may afford public comment as follows. The chair will first ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their name and addresses only. Once the chair has a list of public commentators, I will call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for this session for any comments. Public comment for public hearings will only be accepted in person per open meeting law. And the first agenda item is public comment. The board would like to hear public comments, and if there is further action that is required by the board, the chair will add the matter as appropriate to a forthcoming agenda. Depending on the comment, the board may, if they are able to within the confines of open meeting law, respond with information as opposed to needing to deliberate on the matter. I'll add for tonight's session, I anticipate there will be a number of comments related to the Canso development, which is currently item 8 on our agenda. I would encourage you to use the upfront public comment period if you wish to make a comment on that. I'll also note that we have a website set up online. We do prefer comments that are written down. They're much more clear for us to transcribe. You're more than welcome, though, of course, to make public comments in just a few moments or at any other select board meeting from now up until the public comment period closes in mid-October. That being said, I will now open the floor to public comments and start with public comments from within the room. Are there any public comments in the room tonight? Please come up. If you do want to make a public comment and come up, just please note that the microphone is here in the owl, and just if you could state your name and address, and then please go ahead.
And then I'm commenting on the cancer project. Now is the best time.
This is the best time to do so, correct?
My name's Laura Herrick, and I live at 15 Ironworks Road in Sudbury. And several of my neighbors and I are here on behalf of our neighbors. I am a direct abutter of the proposed project, and so are the 3 of my neighbors. We are submitting comments on the website, which I appreciate, and as well as many other people in our neighborhood. But I also wanted to come just to relay in person our concerns about this proposed project, particularly related to the impact on the water, the groundwater, and the changing water table. I live directly behind it, and it is a very swampy area. It gets very marshy, and I think there is a potential that this area is kind of a overflow water storage area, and I'm concerned that with the large development, there will be less water overflow storage, and it will impact groundwater, and I think it'll impact flooding. We've had considerable increase in flooding in my neighborhood on my street and the street that exits the neighborhood in the last couple of years, and so it's a concern of ours that it'll affect groundwater. Also concerned about the downstream impact of streams and other water areas in the area, including the Assabet Wildlife Refuge. And we have concerns about the wastewater management so close to the wetlands. It's a great concern of ours. We also have concerns about safety that I think is related to water. If there's more flooding and it's difficult to access roads, right now that's been an issue of us even getting out of our neighborhood. And I would worry about that for Parker Street, which I know is probably the main access road for emergency vehicles. Concerned about road congestion, accidents at some of the already very congested intersections, both in Maynard and Sudbury, Stowe related, streets. And, you know, not last in importance, but, environmental concerns. It's a beautiful natural habitat for a lot of animals. We are used to seeing bobcats, lynx, turtles, beavers, all in the back. And if there is a development up to and including, or right up to the wetlands, it's concerned with the natural habitat. If there were to be available sites that could potentially be used instead. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments in the room? Okay, are there any comments from those joining us online tonight? Hi, yes, Abby.
I just wanted to comment, I'm just sort of concerned that it's not actually close to the MBTA. So I'm not sure what people who need to catch the train, how they're gonna get. It just seems like it's the farthest point away from the closest train station for commuting purposes.
Great, thank you. Can you give us your name and address, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, Abby Barrett, 1 Birch Terrace.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from online? Okay, thank you. And of course, we have this public comment session at the beginning of each meeting. Oh, I see we have one more. Hi, Bailey Thaxton. Bailey, you may be on mute.
Yes, good evening. I'm sorry to have technical difficulties. My name is Bailey Thaxton. I live at 11 Prospect Street, and I'd like to echo and reiterate the concerns shared by my fellow neighbors earlier this evening and reiterate the environmental concerns stated, given its close abutment to the National Wildlife Refuge. I think we should put that impact at the forefront of future decisions for this particular development and any future development in Maynard. I also cite concerns around traffic congestion and the distance from MBTA that Abby shared previously as well. I think those are ought to be the top considerations: ease of access for public transportation and environmental impact. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you very much. All right, and as I mentioned, there is a website set up on the Town of Maynard webpage so that you can enter your comments in there, and we will be reviewing those as the Town of Maynard submission deadline in October 26th to the Mass Housing Partnership approaches. So appreciate everyone's concern on this, and we'll continue to monitor that as that deadline approaches. All right, we will move on now to item 4, which is our consent agenda. We have 2 items, a cemetery deed and a rain date for the bocce tournament that we approved last week. Any comments or questions on the consent agenda?
I will, without hearing any comments, I will move to approve consent agenda items A and B as presented, contingent upon adherence to all federal, state, and local public health and safety guidance. And this motion authorizes the use of digital signatures if approved.
All in favor? We're in.
All
All right.
My relationship with the applicant.
Very good. All right, the motion passes. We'll move on to item 5, use of town property. This is an application to use town property for filming. Administrator Greg Johnson.
Yeah, sure. So, for the board's awareness, we were approached by Representatives, Scout and Finley, and gentlemen right here, if you want to hear from them in a minute, but, I'm grateful that they came to the town. It's been a couple of years since we had gotten this level of formality and an approach to filming in town. Sometimes I'll get like an email the day of someone wants to do like an independent film on some street. It's not great. These gentlemen did it the proper way. They gave us weeks heads up and they're very cooperative. We don't have a film permit in town, so we needed to develop one. So I looked to Executive Director of Municipal Services, Steve Silverstein, to look at that, and we used some examples from other towns. So we went there. So what you see in front of you is the format, the template they came up with for the application procedure. Again, these gentlemen were very cooperative. We heard from the different departments. they may have some oversight or some sensitivities to what they want to do. Primarily, they want to film downtown. And it's not a whole day experience, but they're constrained according to their other filming locations, and I can only imagine the production schedule and therefore. Steve, do you want to speak to anything else about the application process? I put him on the spot too.
So, I mean, if you wanted to go over it quickly.
Well, I'm trying to, what do you guys want to hear about?
I think we know enough about.
Okay,
I think we're good.
I do have a question for the gentleman. So first off, welcome to Maynard, and same to the women who were here from Sudbury. Is there gonna be acting going on, or is it just filming of location?
Yeah, step over here. So for this particular project, there aren't any actors, for anybody who doesn't know, anybody who cares. So these are scenes from the TV show Ted, it's on Peacock. Matt and I were local, so we're sort of the connective tissue between, the municipalities in Massachusetts. We only work in Massachusetts. I'm very local, I actually live in Stowe, I moved here 2 years ago.
what's your point of view?
Ryan, yeah.
So appreciate the question. Just step back a second. If you could introduce both yourselves, you're more than welcome to join up front. Give us a brief overview and then we'll go to David's question.
So my name is Ryan Cook. This is Matt Melia. I'm the location manager for the project. Matt is my assistant location manager. As locals in Massachusetts, that we're sort of, like I said, we get hired by the studios or the productions to reach out to the communities and to sort of execute their filming plan. Part of what we do is we look at all the municipalities, mostly in eastern Massachusetts, but sometimes down western, figure out what's gonna work best for them. I spent a lot of time in downtown Maynard, shopping and eating, and they were looking for an iconic New England town featured in the show, and that's what sort of brought us here. I took photographs, sent them to them, and they said, yes, we definitely want to film there. So, these scenes in particular, unfortunately, most of the show is shot in LA. So what they're coming here to do is basically get exterior establishing shots of different businesses. So like, for instance, we're gonna make a beauty salon in Alan Quinn's property, on 58 Main Street, and then they'll cut into the beauty salon. That will all be in LA. So a couple of things we want to do here. It's a beauty salon, but in one shot in particular is a driving shot on Mason Street, so that we can see all of Mason Street, sort of like, you know, looking down Mason Street and the church all the way at the end. Sort of that is the iconic New England shot that we want to feature in the show. For us, one of the complicated things is we actually need the car coming the other way. So this is why we had this movie making, nothing is simple. So we've done a lot of outreach, and you talked to, oh, there's a map over there. So let me step back. There's 3 different locations in Maynard. One would be the Mason Street shot. One would be 58 Main Street, which would be our quote unquote beauty salon. And then the third would be up on Waltham Street, which I pitched to them, and they actually love. Is in the end of one of the last shots of the episode is this drone shot that slowly reveals as a car drives away this beautiful iconic New England landscape. And that will be your downtown, sort of revealing from residential and seeing the downtown. And that would be the last, it's like a 45-second shot, which is a very long shot in the TV show. That would be the last shot of that episode. So those are the 3 pieces of work that we're looking to accomplish. So we've been working, like I said, we talked, I think, a couple weeks ago, and just started doing outreach downtown, met with police chief, and just sort of talking to everybody about what we want to do and what the best plan to make it all work is. So yeah.
My other follow-up would be, as you probably know, Maynard has been featured in many large studio films over the last several years,
Yeah.
a couple at least.
Yeah.
But anyway, at those, I was one of them, the first one, and I forget what film it was.
Knives Out was the biggest.
Knives Out was the biggest
Yeah,
one, and there was
yeah.
another one they did down at the movie theater, but so they had a huge crowd of people
Yeah,
across the street. Now, there were actors there, and the woman that was.
we're so much smaller.
Are you looking,
So-
is there gonna be a problem if residents are interested and come down to watch?
No, and for
That's
the-
what I wanna find out.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. So I did the TV show Dexter out here, and where we have 500 crew members, I have Michael Ciala and all that stuff. I'm like, I'm used to doing those projects. This is a 35, I don't even have lights. We're like camera on sticks. We're gonna be moving around, running around. I'm a 30-person crew. Instead of the 25 trucks that you're used to seeing, I'm 2 trucks, you know, so we're pretty small and light. And I think by the time people see us, they might just think like, we're doing a mayonnaise commercial, you know, that's what we always tell. That's what we always tell people, oh, we're doing a mayonnaise commercial, and they're like, oh, okay, see you later, you know, so. I don't anticipate something like that, and by the time anybody comes and is interested, we're jumping on to the next thing, just because before coming to Maynard on this Saturday, we're shooting three different locations in downtown Boston, and then coming out here, so.
And I
we're
know,
quite-
I know you've worked with the police
Yeah.
department, so when the cars coming the wrong way on the
Yep.
street, people will be pushed aside, so.
Yeah, so I think we have 5 officers on detail, and then we have 10 of our production assistants who will be plugging the holes to make sure that, you know, and it's not like it's a stunt scene where the car's whipping up.
Yeah,
It's
right,
driving-
I get it.
It's driving 25 miles an hour, so we'll be having some people in like alleyways and whatnot to make sure nobody walks out or anything like that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Great, good luck.
Cool,
I look forward
thank
to
you guys
seeing
very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. The only thing I was gonna say, ask is sometimes when I do these types of meetings, is that, in case there's we get rain or something like that, but sometimes I ask the board to empower, the town administrator and the police chief to make a timing decision if we have to push the schedule before I'm able to come back and present to you guys, if that's something you guys are open to within reason.
Any particular challenge with that request, Chris?
Oh, no, I have no problem. I would appreciate that, but it's up to the board, of course. Are we talking like the next day or the next week?
It would be like, maybe we push to Sunday or something like that, or maybe, pushing to maybe the next week or something like that.
We haven't had rain in 3.5 weeks.
I know, and of course, it looks like this tail end of this little storm that's coming through, so I think we're gonna be okay for Saturday. It's actually my Friday that I have to worry about, but it just made me think, like, if for some reason I had to bump to Sunday. I wasn't able to come to you guys to present, I would just wanna be able to have somebody else say, yes, we have the ability to make that decision within, your world.
So it's up to the board. How much authority do you want?
Are all the businesses aware of?
Yes,
Yes, yeah, I flyered last week, talked to all the businesses,
Yeah.
they're aware.
yeah, and that flyer, by the way, has our cell phone numbers on it, so we don't hide from anybody, they can call us directly.
And are they aware that there might be an alternative date if it rains?
They aren't, but if that's something that we, our general practice is as soon as that happens, we go and do flyer right again, talk to everybody directly.
Yeah, that would be helpful in that way, then I have no problem at all.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would go out with a flyer and say rain date on the top.
Yeah.
Date change.
sometimes we don't put a rain date on there because then people don't read these things very well, and so they think we're doing both days,
Right,
We
right.
try to give people the right information up front, and then really to create a dialogue with them so that we can connect with them, like he can go back in and talk to everybody face to face. Yeah.
Any other questions from the board? Does anybody object to including the alternate, giving Greg the authority to grant a rain date or if necessary?
No.
Okay, fantastic. Would anybody like to read the motion?
Sure.
With the rain date language?
Move to approve the use of Mason Street and Summer Street, Waltham Street, between Haynes Street and Parker Street. And Main Street in the vicinity of 58A Main Street by Universal Content Production LLC. For film production on Saturday, September 21st, 2024. From 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. contingent upon adherence to all federal, state, and local public health and safety guidelines. And authorizing the use of digital signatures if approved. And to empower the town administrator to make any decisions necessary based on weather or other climate changes to alter the date.
All in favor? Very good. Gentlemen, good luck. Thank you.
very much. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, we're moving on to item 6 on the agenda, which is contracts. We're starting with an agreement with Select Energy. And this is for solar panels over on the high school.
That's true. Mr. Chair, this is pretty nuanced, pretty technical. But the idea is to make sure we're covering our bases, literally parcels that are associated with the solar panels that are installed at the high school, as you said. We're joined this evening by 2 people from Select, Byron Woodman and, well, I don't know, I'm looking at, is Wendy Baldy? I see, Wendy Zackel. Okay, so they're both from Select. They represent the owner and the operator of the solar panels. So it is rather technical. I included a description gratefully provided by Select. But is there anything else you want to say, Byron or Wendy? Is there any other, or be ready for questions from the board if there's any?
Yeah, I mean, we're happy to answer any questions. It's pretty basic, the need for the amendments, and happy to just go through that if you'd like, or if you just want to ask questions.
You want to give us just a brief overview of what the amendments?
Wendy,
Yeah.
can you give? Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. So the whole thing came up because we're financing the project and our lender just raised some questions about the property description. So it is technical. The in both of the agreements, there's an exhibit describing the school property as a whole, and also an exhibit describing the leased premises, so a portion of that property. And the lease, the exhibit describing the entire property only includes the original lease, only includes 2 of the 3 deeds that cover the school property. And frankly, it really wasn't an issue because the 2 deeds that we included in the lease are the deeds that impact our project, because the school is on a huge parcel and then it overlaps onto a second parcel. So that's the lease. But our bank, our lender, raised 2 concerns with the documents. One was that the third parcel, that there's just some discrepancies between the property meets and bounds descriptions in the recorded documents and the tax assessor description. And there's just some vagueness in the chain of title. And they felt more comfortable having all 3 deeds in that property description, which frankly is what we typically do in the property description. It describes the entire property. For some reason, we didn't do that this time, and it came back and bit us because of this particular strange, normally a school is on one parcel, or it's not quite like this. So they asked us to include the entire parcel, which is what we normally do. The second exhibit describes the leased portion of the property, and the issue with that exhibit was that we included our site plan, and there are 2 pages to the site plan, and 1 page shows the actual solar panels on the building and the canopy. The second page of the site plan, in this particular instance that was included in the lease, only shows 1 parcel. It shows the main parcel where the school building is located. It doesn't show the parcel where the school building overlaps onto, just a piece of a second parcel. And it doesn't show the third parcel, which is, which doesn't matter. So the second exhibit is misleading on the second page because it suggests that our leased portion is only the part of the school on the main parcel, and it doesn't include the small piece of the school on the second parcel. And that's a problem because our panels are actually on that entire rooftop and overlapping onto parcel 2. So I hope I didn't confuse you, but it's very technical. The bank is simply asking us to make the initial exhibit describing the property, make it the entire property, which is what we typically do. And for whatever reason, we didn't in this instance, and make the second exhibit, just correct it so it's not misleading. So just remove page 2, which actually makes our leased portion look smaller than it is. Does that make sense?
Yes, we have the text in front of us. So there's no change to the number of panels, location of those with the carports, the monetary amounts in that. This is more cleanup of the language and fixing those kind of technical details on the scope of the exhibits.
Exactly.
Perfect. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, does this require action from the school committee as well?
I'm gonna say that no. So you're the owners of the properties, so that's why I don't think this requires their authorization. Again, this is an amendment to what's already been approved. So, if the board would like, I can go to the school committee, but I wouldn't recommend it. It doesn't seem necessary, and it's relatively technical, so they would probably, I don't see why they would have any objection to something that's already been approved.
My concern would just be to make sure that if it's required, that we get it, so
Okay.
it's not a problem down the road.
There are no other comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I will move to approve the amendments to the lease and power purchase agreements with Solect Energy for the installation, operation and ownership of a rooftop and carport solar photovoltaic array to be installed at Maynard High School 3 times the town administrator to execute said agreement.
All in favor? Very good. The motion passes. We'll move on to 6B, which is the purchase and sale and development agreement for 1 Summer Street, the former fire station.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is exciting, potentially historic, depending on how the vote goes. So, the town for, had multiple attempts and for a long time, has been trying to sell the old fire station. In this, most recent version, we've been negotiating with McDonald Development, as they were the advantageous proposer to the RFP reissued. I'm stealing a lot of thunder of Steve Silverstein for doing a lot of the work. And McDonald Development, I really do appreciate their cooperation, their patience, in working with us to get to where we are. So, the board had given a little bit of direction earlier, that's been incorporated into the language of this contract. I'm sorry, the purchase and sales agreement and the development agreement. Again, it's two, the purchase and sale is just to sell the property. The development agreement is under what conditions? So, relatively limited. We still would have to go for, any other sort of regulations, whether it be planning board or otherwise. This still has to go beyond the select board. You are just selling the property, and then they still have to jump through hoops and redevelop it. But, right, so this really just captures the language that was included in their proposal, which is a response to our RFP. And, Steve, is there anything else you want to add? Have we discussed it? Okay.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, having reviewed the development agreement that's in front of us. It looks to me like the two main issues that we discussed at our last meeting, one was the remediation. That was mandated, and the other was having to do with the museum aspect, were both addressed. And so it appears that those issues have been, addressed in the development agreement. So I think, Greg, you just answered my other question, where there's a blank under number 2.1 or 2I, however it's proper, where the developer will commence permitting on or before, sometime before, apparently before the end of 2024. Is that being too restrictive on them, given the fact that we're in September?
That's a great question. What's your sense of how long permitting may take? We might want to pump that out on the safe side, because
It says commence permitting, but I don't know what their plan is.
That's fair. What's your sense of like when they might start permitting?
Maybe it's yesterday,
It's 3 months from now.
but he's yesterday. He's yesterday, he's not gonna drag his feet.
He operates at an accelerated pace.
They agreed to this already, didn't they?
Yeah.
So,
He's gonna move fast. He's not gonna miss a date. If anything, he's gonna try and jump the date.
So should it read on or before November 1st, 2024? So that
I mean, I
gives
was-
them a month and a month and a half, and
I was kidding, because he's also trying to, I also wanted to finish the project.
no, I agree, that's part of why,
I would lean towards the end of December. Just to, because if he doesn't abide by that, then he's breaking the terms of his contract. So I would give him, depending on the patience of the board. But I'm relatively patient, considering he is.
even if it's on or before December 31st, 2020.
That's what I was thinking. But what do you guys think?
What? Yeah.
But I don't think it's wise to approve a contract with no date.
That's fair. But we can, if you all say it now, it'll be as. With the stated addition of that date for section 2I.
Yeah, so my concern would be twofold. One, that we're not restricting him too soon. So that if he doesn't get it to December 31st for whatever reason, Chris said he's ready to go tomorrow, or today, so that's fine. But I don't want to hamper him and cause a problem down the road by having a.
But if he's already agreed to this document, then he understands that it's the end of his calendar year.
It doesn't say.
So-
But it doesn't have a date on there.
Yeah.
It doesn't, but it's 2024, and I mean, we know that there are only so many days left in twenty.
So then it would be
So
December
theoretically, he
31st.
I would
is the
say
date to
just-
put in.
Yes, that's what I think Greg was proposing, which I think
Yeah.
makes sense.
And if we
And
need
it's
to,
not too restrictive.
if it's not too restrictive, and if we need to amend it, we can absolutely do that. But my preference is to do that tonight, because I don't want
I agree.
to delay this any
Delaying
further.
this.
I'm fine with this on the 31st, but he's not one to drag his feet,
All right, then it should not be an issue, and we can amend if we need to.
so.
So if you want to do the motion, so I would recommend including that December 31st, 2024, when the developer will commence the building.
Sound good? Any other comments from the board?
I'm just wondering, was there any conversation about parking for these apartments?
Right, you want
So
to do
if there's
that?
gonna be a museum down there, then, you know, the residents who are upstairs would presumably look for parking. I'm just wondering where that would go.
So he's preserving, I believe, the current configuration of the building, but he says that any excess parking would, his tenants would park at his 10 Main Street building.
Which meets based on zoning requirements, has to be within like, what is it, 800 feet or something along those lines? And that is within the 800 feet. So also, I believe, is the building down at the end of Waltham, and so also is the building
That's probably true.
at Summer and Nason. All meeting the qualifications of the zoning.
Right.
The one at the top of the hill may not be, but the other two, I think, are. Definitely the one next to McDonald's, the restaurant.
And are these gonna be like, one-bedroom apartments? Because it's not a very big building.
That's a good question. What's your recollection? What was the size of the apartment? Oh, I'm trying to remember now.
But he will have to ask for, have to go to planning board to ask for a variance on what he can develop by right in that space, right?
Yeah, and there are requirements under the
Yeah,
downtown
I think this
overlay
is all what
district
they
as
will
well, I
review.
assume.
He needs a special permit for, he's gonna build 8 apartments.
I think, yeah, he needs a special permit for
For
that.
more than 5 or 6, I believe. So yeah, just a special permit on the areas.
Right.
Okay.
And do we know if that triggers the affordability aspect?
He will owe the town 1 affordable unit.
Yeah.
So okay.
And that, is that under the downtown overlay district?
It is, yeah.
It does not have to be in that building, does it? Can you put it in another building?
His intention is to put it in that one.
Which I get, to the point, if he decides he doesn't want to put it there, and he wants to add another one to another spot. Is that acceptable?
I don't know. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Probably not compliant with the bylaw. But I don't know.
I don't know, because if he wants to get whatever sort of incentives there, advantages, you know, that the downtown inclusionary zoning allows, my assumption would be, would have to be downtown. So, I don't, that's a great question, not sure, but we can look into it, either way,
The planning board's gonna,
Yeah.
the planning board's gonna do that, that's their gig.
yeah,
It's not, I mean, it's interesting conversation, but it's their responsibility.
Any other comments? Somebody like to make a motion and noting the date again.
Move to approve the purchase and sales agreement and development agreement with McDonald Development for the disposition of 1 Summer Street as presented. Permitting to commence prior to December 31st, 2024, and authorizing the use of digital signatures if approved.
Second.
All in favor? Very good, and I'll echo the town administrator's comments. That is a significant step forward, and good to have that with the recent disbanding of the committee to get the new fire station up and running just a few weeks ago. Congratulations and good work by town staff. All right, moving on to 6C, which is a change order relative to the Route 27 intersection. I inspected it myself on the way over here. The pavement looks nice. If that was the only improvement, I'd say we
I
were.
thought we were gonna go home early tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Justin DeMarco, Public Works Director. To Jeff's point, as the board is aware and many residents are aware, we're undertaking a major traffic improvement project at the intersection of Hayes, Brown, and Concord Street. That project is actually close to completion, and due to the fact that we received very advantageous bids, we have in front of you a change order that was actually previously removed from our original design set based on our estimates. Those change orders are improvements that actually enhance the safety and vitality of that intersection. Those two change orders, which is combined into one change order, represent two separate projects, but they're interconnected to the intersection. So I'll start with one project. The first change order is PC 001, which is the expansive approach of connectivity of a pedestrian sidewalk from the intersection location of Brown and Concord, heading towards the town of Acton, connecting the crosswalk to a concrete sidewalk in front of an abutter, which is Charette's Motors. This is a sidewalk that is in poor disrepair, is non-ADA compliant, and actually has a major stormwater issue that was identified that we would like to address. The second change order improvement actually is to remove what's called the spur lane of Acton Street. So if you're not familiar, when you head up Acton Street heading towards Acton, on your left is Cumberland Farms. That extension is actually Acton Street that comes on to Hayes. We're looking to remove that spur lane, which would reduce a pedestrian crossing, which is the rail trail now on Acton Street. And it would actually decrease traffic on Acton Street coming from Acton headed towards downtown. So any vehicular traveler who's looking to bypass our new intersection with our light would typically go down Acton Street to bypass this and use that spur lane. We're looking to remove that so that we focus all the traffic back onto Brown and Acton and Hayes. This also creates a larger park, which is always part of our master plan goal. It also removes another pedestrian crossing in this location. If you're unaware of this location, there's many egress crossings here. So we're happy to say that we have the budget to complete both of these projects as originally designed. We received a significant amount of feedback from our abutters on some enhancement as we started to do work, and this was one that was called out by most of the abutters. So
Justin, there had been some conversation back when this whole discussion was happening about the sort of spur area, about the fact that trucks need to use that, trucks that deliver gas to Cumberland Farms that are coming from the Sudbury side of the road of Acton Street, if that's what it is. And they can't make that left turn into Cumberland Farms without backing traffic up significantly behind them, because it's so tight for a car, let alone for a truck. And then, so with removing that spur lane, they would use that apparently to make a left turn, then come down and go straight into the Cumberland Farms to make deliveries. Is that a significant problem for
technically
the
that's
business?
illegal right now. Technically, that's illegal right now because Concord Street is a truck restricted road. So technically, they're already creating an illegal function. And local deliveries can be done. It may not be. So if you're unaware, I also hold a CDL. So in advanced planning from Cumberland Farms, that truck could gain access to that site as long as they know in advance and shut down their back pump to allow the truck and tractor to come in. There will be a backup situation that may happen every once in a while, but that's something that will need to be coordinated. There is also another driveway that feeds the backside of the rental car facility that are adjacent to the rail trail. I'm sure they can get into an agreement with the US, Enterprise for use of deliveries there as well. But
Yeah, I favor closing down the spur. It seems to me to be a useless little strip of.
I would always encourage you, I mean.
Takes away the,
It's a non-issue. Cumberland Farms will have to make their traffic department figure out a way to go to another place and come in from the other direction. Come up 27 rather than go out 27 and take a left and a right. They've now got to find a way to route their truck so that their truck is coming, and Cumberland Farms will be on the right, because they come in on the right and go on the left.
right,
They'll continue to do that. They'll just have to find somewhere else to turn. They'll have to come down off from 2, or they'll have to come up a different way. They can't just continue to go down that spur. That's all. It's a minor adjustment for their traffic system.
Yeah.
The question I have about that spur is, I understand the piece that goes towards Cumberland Farms. How does that affect the piece of that little piece of that road that kind of goes up to the
Maple Court?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did talk to some abutters because we had 2 potential plan sets for that. So if you're unaware, that's a one-way street, which actually exits onto Concord Street at the intersection of Acton and Concord. We actually discussed with the abutters, because we look at it in two directions. We could flip the one way, which would have been in front of you if that was the ultimate goal, or we can keep it as is. And the abutters actually wanted to keep the one way as is, so technically, we're only closing the spur lane from Maple Court to Haynes Street, so allowing Maple Court to still enter into that four-way intersection. There'll be signage that says do not enter coming from Acton Street down, and then you'll see wooden guardrail area.
Maple Court gets, so it's only a four-way if you're coming from Maple Court, and
Correct.
nobody else can go into Maple Court,
Yes.
except for residents can go into Maple Court? from there?
No, they still have to come to Maple Street.
Okay.
It is still a one-way that flushes into Concord, so technically, to that point, we are reducing it is technically a four-way stop, but we're reducing entering traffic from Acton Street and Maple Court into Concord. And if you're unaware, if you remember some of the original conversations with the plan, the original design set was Cat Cottage is the site distance issue. So in order, we can't necessarily reconfigure the entire park to change that site orientation. What we can do is reduce the amount of traffic coming into that four-way intersection, causing that site distance issue, and that's what we look to do here. By eliminating the cut through, we're reducing cut through traffic from Acton down, that will add to that four-way, and the same when we're coming up Acton Street. So technically, Maple Court consists of, I want to say, 6 to 8 houses, so very small amount of traffic.
And residents on Acton Street, going through that cut through as well, so there is an inconvenience factor for residents, I understand the reason, but. Just want to acknowledge that.
Does this funding that is available include tearing up the spur and filling it in with
Yep.
grass and everything else?
Yeah, top to bottom
It's
completion.
not gonna just be cones put up at the end, do not pass.
So if you, technically right now, if you travel up Acton Street and part of the rail trail, you see that wooden facade fencing,
Yeah.
aesthetic appeal fencing. So when you're coming from Acton Street heading towards the town of Acton, you will see that continued fence line, which we're doing that to also help drivers understand that there's not a decision to be made left or straight. So that will help from a visual standpoint and also provide a pedestrian protection zone. Coming from Acton down towards Concord, there'll be a wooden guardrail to prevent any traffic that may get confused from trying to drive over the grass. So we're looking at protecting the pedestrian access on the rail trail. So you'll see signage as well.
Will it be grass, or do you imagine inviting the tree committee to plant some trees?
So Lindsay, the original change order includes, turf under the price point. We will have some unit costs at the end of this project, so you may see you're most likely gonna see a PCO 3, but the way that we bid these types of projects out, it's unit costs, and there's some savings on certain things, and there's overages, and then we'll reconcile that difference. Depending on what's remaining in the balance, we may have a conversation of maybe putting in a change order 4, or refocusing some of that funding with enhancements to the park.
So. People coming down Acton Street will now have to turn left on Concord to get onto Haynes is the ultimate.
Correct, or right on Concord, down Brook Street to go to downtown, or Summer Street.
Yeah.
Presumably it's safer because there's a light.
You see what's going on, because that left turn is
Yeah.
the dangerous one, but the overall improvement should make that left turn safer to begin with,
The
so.
left turn is the same thing as going straight. It's T-bone conversation to be had there. So our timing is very important. So the difference, we've adjusted for this in the original design, is coming from Acton down Brown Street and taking a right onto Concord. Right now, technically, you can just take that right turn. We have designed the light system that there's no right turn on red, so that it's a controlled turn.
We hatched that out last time you were.
Yeah. So
So is the anticipation that there might be more traffic going down Maple Street, not Maple Court, but actually Maple Street? Just thinking of people coming down who would.
So if anything, you could make the easy argument that the residents of Acton Street could navigate down Concord Road or Brooks or Maple more than they do now. But you can also make the argument that on Acton, so Jeff will do Acton Street, I'm not gonna throw him, he's like, right, yeah. But a majority of the neighborhood behind him, the maze, will typically funnel out to Brook Street anyways. So if anything, you're talking about the residents of Acton either going through the intersection and or funneling down Concord Street. Ultimately, when it comes to traffic patterns, residential traffic is very minimum compared to pass-through traffic. If you're unaware of this location, I'm sure you're seeing an uptick in when we do road closures as part of the project. There's a significant amount of traffic that navigates 27. We want that traffic to stay on 27. And we would prefer our residents use our back roads as much as possible. We really just want to focus all of the cut-through traffic to our intersection.
Okay. Any other questions on the change order?
Is there a second change order request?
I combine them into
Yeah,
two.
okay.
You could break them if you wanted to, but I
Okay, sorry.
am recommending both as one.
Maybe I'd like to make a motion.
Here we go. Sorry. Move to approve the terms of change order 1, inclusive of PCO 001 and PCO 002 in the amount of $81,850 in accordance with the approved contract number 1446 between the town of Maynard and IW Harding Construction Co. Inc. for the construction of a new traffic signal and related improvements at the intersection of Route 27 at Concord Street, authorizing use of signatures if approved.
Second.
All in favor? Very well. Thank you, Justin.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving on to item 7, which is a traffic safety improvement, which is the installation of a stop sign at Bose Hill and Detting Roads. Detling, sorry, David. And Greg, would you like to set this up? We talked about it at a
Just
previous meeting.
Please speak to it. So the board had received correspondence from a resident in the neighborhood who had requested the board's consideration of the installation of the stop sign. The correspondence is included for the board's packet as well. And the board, this was interested in what the resources may be required. The police chief hadn't said that it was a requirement or even strongly recommended, but you could see the advantage of having the stop sign there just to improve safety. But the board was interested in what the costs, so to speak, may be. So I asked DPW Director Justin DeMarco. It's marginal. I mean, we replace stop signs every year. So according to me, you can ask Justin directly, but he's not opposed, and we can handle the resource demand. It's a little bit of time, a little bit of money, and to put a stop sign there. It's up to the board ultimately. If it makes the neighborhood feel that much safer, the board could, I can see the advantage to that. So the staff is not opposed to it.
Questions?
Michelle was on earlier. She wanted to comment, but I don't see that she's on any longer.
Okay, Lindsay wrote something.
I just have a question in regard to, when we get correspondences like this, and I look back, it was the only one I can recall, and I mean, I've only been on the select board for a couple months, so not an extensive history, but was an accident that took place at a crosswalk near the Boys and Girls Club where a child was hit by a car. And the request in the correspondence was to add something to that intersection to increase, visibility in that crosswalk. Similarly, I think the police chief looked back and said that there haven't been any other pedestrian accidents at that intersection in 5 years, similar to this. It looks like he looked back. But it doesn't seem like we did accommodate that request to look at that crosswalk specifically and add any additional safety features that might highlight the crosswalk, given that many children use it. So I'm just curious, and I'm not sure who this question is for. If it's for town staff or the board, but how do we decide which of these traffic requests we accommodate and which we don't? Is it based on feasibility, based on the staff we have, resources, costs, need? What are our vetting criteria for this?
If you're looking at me, I would be reluctant to compare the two so directly. I'm not saying that you are, but if one were to consider the two scenarios, they are very different. So in this particular case, it's relatively minor. If we were to put a stop sign at this location between Bose Hill and Detling, it would impact a relatively small amount of residents. It's removed from the main road, but it would provide maybe a peace of mind if nothing else, and at the minimal cost it would be to install a stop sign. That might be worth it. Separately, the other that you mentioned, I believe the police chief had noted that it's not that much of an offset from where the recommended. By that resident, the recommended crosswalk would be, and then the actual intersection where there's already crosswalks. So I recall, but I apologize if they're inaccurate in my recollection, that the police chief had sort of. The expectation is that people would walk up to the already existing crosswalk at the intersection. So it's not. But what I'm saying is, I think it's important for the board and town staff to look at every individual scenario separately. So I don't, my conscience will be clear if you're considering this request differently than you would any other request, or particularly the one you brought up. Like, you should look at each one. Not to say we can't go, maybe we should go back and look at another one, and if the board would like, we can. I can reach back out to the police chief and have him sort of reevaluate his position on that, and you can reconsider it. But I'm just saying, I think you should see these as separate.
Okay, that's fair. I was just curious, like how we consider these, if it's just, but it sounds like there is no set criteria, it's just a variety of different factors.
Sure. I mean, it's not very often we get these, so it's not,
No,
like, and the majority of the town's traffic is the town's traffic. It requires a significant effort to change anything. So, in this particular case, it's relatively minor. I don't think it warrants like the policy analysis. Like having, again, that other scenario included crosswalk, a light, it was a different beast.
okay, thank you.
I think we'll pause, we can do a follow-up though.
Okay.
So in this particular case, have there been any more people expressing concern about this junction? Or are we looking at concerns from one person?
I mean, admittedly, that's the only one I've heard. But I've heard from other neighbors that it might be advantageous to have a stop sign there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm agnostic to it.
Okay,
I recognize the concern that was expressed and I've witnessed it. But
the board doesn't even have to take action on this tonight. If you'd like to hear from other residents or from the police chief directly, it's up to the board.
This is, to me, is a relatively low
Yeah.
impact decision either way.
I think it's, I agree.
So move to approve the installation of stop sign at Rose Hill Road and Detling Road.
Second. All in favor?
I will abstain.
Thank you, David. All right, that's item 7.
In one night. What's happening to the kids?
We will move on to item 8, which is 182 Parker Street. We already alluded to this earlier. This is the chapter 40B application from Canso Development to the Massachusetts Housing Partnership. This is a quasi-state entity who is evaluating the possibility of issuing a project eligibility letter to allow them to continue with their plans to basically bypass a significant chunk of our zoning laws. We are in a comment period, which has recently been extended, and I think I might have had the date wrong earlier. Our deadline, the town's deadline to submit comments to the Massachusetts Housing Partnership is October 21st, and we're asking public to get comments in by October 4th, so that we have time to evaluate all the comments and collate them and package them and review them, and then send them off to Mass Housing Partnership so we can make the best possible argument for the town in this particular case. So I'll turn it over to the town administrator from there. There's no action being taken tonight, but I think the major change from last time is the extension of that comment deadline, which previously was in September.
That's what Mr. Chair, you hit the wave tops. In the meantime, or additionally, I have included for the board with the public's awareness that there's a timeline. So we, with that extension in mind, we just sort of pushed everything out. Town staff highly encourages the public to, although welcome at public meetings, but to go on the line. It helps us to kind of keep a track of who said what and what the specific issues may be. But that's sort of in parallel with what the town staff is doing. So the town staff and the boards and committees already have the tasks of looking at the development, looking at the proposal, according to what the application we have, and then just seeing what the potential impacts may be, for better or for worse. Our job as town staff is to sort of look at it objectively as to what the impacts, whether it be infrastructure, traffic, public safety, etc. And then as the timeline notes, we'll collect all this information, both from the public, the boards, committees, and the town staff, and then we'll develop a recommendation for the select board to consider as of or by October 15th, because that's the last regular scheduled select board meeting between the deadline. If the board would like to take action at that date, you can have a special meeting and wait until the deadline, whichever. So the process is happening. Today, we were invited and we attended the on-site visit by MHP, the Massachusetts Housing Partnership that you noted. And so there was representatives from the developer and then their architect and engineering team and the rep from MHP and town staff. Representation from the town's conservation commission and representation from town staff of Sudbury because it's on the Sudbury line. So it wasn't much to see. We walked around. I included pictures in the board docs. There's a house there, a little bit level, but most of it's tree line. And you can kind of see a little bit of the tops of the houses if you look really closely. I imagine all those leaves go away in the wintertime. It's probably clear. Okay, but there is water there. I mean, there's wetlands, but there, you know, as the board heard from the developer, Avalon, this is not their first rodeo. They know exactly how to fit it in. They are very self-contained. In other words, they contract out very little besides like the design team, but even that design team are very practiced. And those 3 individuals we met today, they've done multiple of these sites, so they understand how the procedure works. They're relatively patient. They're professional. They are coming to our town, probably simultaneously to other towns, and they're just going through the motion of what they need to do. So, right. So it's happening, and we'll continue to receive those comments. And again, I encourage the public, whoever they may be, go online, check it out. You can see all the plans. There's a really, I think, pretty simple, easy form. Put your comments in.
I do appreciate the town staff since last meeting setting up that intake form for people to put comments in. It's a nice, clearly articulated way for us to collect comments and move them through. So thank you.
Good job.
Any questions? We covered this quite extensively at our last meeting. So as I said, the main change is that extension for public comments, which we discussed and got. So we're glad to have that extra time, especially with town meeting coming up during the comment period. What, any other questions or comments from the board?
I have a quick question for Justin. Seeking a quick answer from Justin. I know that I recall back maybe a year and a half ago, you made a pretty detailed presentation to the board relative to our capacity, our water capacity. And you talked about various things, and there were graphs and there was whatever. Can you point to the public so that they can find that presentation in some fashion on the DPW website? Because I've been getting some questions from people about what is the science behind it all? What is the specific details? Because people don't want to just write, we have a water capacity issue. They want to be able to cite specifics. And I told them that there was a presentation and it was very clear, and it was, you know, I know you remember the presentation where it basically said there could be a time where, you know, on a certain day, maybe it's just one day, but it could be that you could turn on the faucet, and nothing could come out.
Correct.
That could be theoretically true.
Yeah.
One would imagine that if there's a further stress on the system, that there might be several days that you turn on the water and no water will come out because of capacity issues.
Correct.
That is all documented in a presentation that you skillfully made for us about a year and a half ago. And I'd like to be able to let the public see it and refer to it so that they may be able to use it as part of their presentation.
So David, we actually do that presentation yearly. So there is a track record over the past 10 years. And then there's actually a case study that it continually goes back to, which is referred to the Point Pond study, which is a 500-page document. All of this can be found under the DPW's website under our water resources planning page. So if you go to the town Maynard Department of Public Works, there's a water resources page. We actually already peer reviewed this development for the water and sewer capacity. And there is a peer reviewed technical memo that was provided to Avalon. That is also archived and found on the website. So within that, we do try to take that technical language and simplify it onto a 2 or 3 page memo. That's what most people can refer to. Other than that, they've already been
And just
denied.
again, briefly, the results of the peer review were,
They were denied water
Thank
capacity
you.
allowance. To disclaimer, that doesn't mean that they can't tap their own well or seek alternative sources. So just know for the town of Maynard, we can't support the development of that side under our water utility capacity. That
thank
has
you.
been well documented, that will be provided.
And that should be emphasized in public meetings. Every time we discuss this, that aspect needs to be made very, very clear.
And
And
David,
it has nothing to do with affordable housing and nothing to do with, you know,
we conducted that early and that will be included in the town's comment period, the technical paper will be included.
He's right, I'm on the website right now, it is there, I will provide.
is it easy to find?
I mean, the Public Works probably has a bunch of information on there, yes, I mean, like, if you go to the Department of Public Works on the town's website, if you click on water sewer and then you click on water resources and rate planning, it's there, I mean, like, unfortunately, whatever is it's difficult to determine what has to be at the top of every page, but it is there. I will do a quick email to the board, just so you guys have it, in case you could ask.
Can it also be connected, that study, if it isn't already, to the town's page on this project? So that can become evident to
Yeah, we can-
anybody reviewing all the documents?
That's a good, that's the same way to do it.
Okay,
And it's a good highlight of something we like to get in front of the public from time to time anyway, so they're understanding what the overall status of our water infrastructure is and progress that we've made over the last few years.
Cause I'm looking at it now and it's easy to find if you know exactly where to look.
yeah.
If you don't know
To
where.
Greg's point,
Yeah.
we have a lot of information.
Right, exactly.
And that's great, and that's desirable.
Yeah.
You know, when somebody wants something quickly,
Yeah,
We always encourage this. Any one of your constituents.
Call
can easily reach out to the Department of Public Works and we will assist them in any way.
you will rest assured that that is exactly what I have done. Is told
Yes.
people, look, I don't know exactly where to find it. Call down, they would be happy to help.
I do this all the time. That's how I make my stories. I have to put those links in. There's a lot there.
Thank you. Any other comments on 8A?
Are you gonna go to the public, and possibly somebody who wasn't here earlier?
Sure, if anybody has any public comments and missed the initial public comment, we can reopen that.
Good.
All right. All right, well, we will continue along the timeline as presented. If there are no other comments, item 9, we are gonna delay to a subsequent meeting. We're hoping to finish up that relatively shortly though, so looking forward to having the subsequent meeting. And we'll move on to item 10, which is FY 26. And so here it is. This is the policy statement. We issue this every year, and this is really the kickoff to the budget season. It's never,
I feel like we're never not.
it's never not budget season.
But you're absolutely right, Mr. Chair. So the town's charter, section 6.4, submission of the budgets and budget message. The board issues a policy statement, on or before the 15th day of November of each year. The select board in consultation with the town administrator and finance committee shall issue a policy statement relating to the budget for the next fiscal year. So, right, it's largely the same year by year. I mean, like, there's obviously constraints to the resources and, but you have about 2 months to legally issue this. So I put it in front of you now. I took a quick stab at it. I really didn't change much beyond the dates. You see last year's, so it's up to however you would want to do it. I put the date of November 5th at the top because that's the last regular select board meeting before the deadline by the charter. In the meantime, I think I included some board docs. I've already issued some guidelines to the department heads, which are all, again, largely the same. So we've been using ClearGov for the last couple of years, both for the operating side and I think excitingly for the capital side. And I reached out to Doug Adler, who's the chair of the capital planning committee, and they said that they have issued direction to the departments already, which is great. With the exception, I think just the one department head, which is forthcoming, the new town clerk. I think they've all used it in the past. So this is it. I mean, I think if, I didn't really have any expectations for the board tonight unless y'all know exactly what you wanted this to look like. Otherwise, it's up to the board. You can provide me input tonight. You can think about it and then shoot me an email about it. It can be as detailed as you want or as broad as you want. Like the charter only says the statement shall establish the outer limits and guidelines of possible budget growth for the town to be used by various town agencies, officers and committees in preparation for operating budget. So again, you're just trying to say like, here's the boundaries. Yeah, kicking off like a season, but it never really stops because when we amend the budget.
We're kicking off a portion where there's 3 budgets instead of 2 that we have to
Yeah,
consider.
actually, right now, we're very much in a 3 budget period, so town staff, the finance team, town accountant's office, treasurer collectors. They're closing the books still, so like they're very much in 3 different fiscal years right now. And that's where we are.
Questions, comments?
So now's about the time when you're gonna, I mean, I will recommend to the chair to have. It maybe not every meeting, but eventually every meeting, there's usually gonna be something budget related.
So the date on this is November 5th. That's the date you're going to actually issue this.
No, if you finish it early, I just said, I think I looked ahead and I think the last regular select board meeting before the charter deadline of the 15th is November 5th.
Okay, so this has, what we see here has not been issued. already.
Not at all.
It's just sort of,
It does say consultation with the finance committee. Do we run this by them?
So that's a good question. In the past, I've notified them. I don't think there's been a formality to that.
Yeah, it's not.
So it depends on how you want to do it. I
it's
mean,
not required by charter or anything like
it
that.
just says in
In
consultation.
consultation, so- Yeah, unless there's objections to or desired changes to the particular statement we have in front of us, I think we notify them as we have in past, and then we can. Approve. Any objections to that plan? I think the major conversations really pick up once we get through special town meeting and see the decisions there, and then.
That's true, and in the very near future, as we sort of wrap up the FY 24 and then get into revenue. So like you start the budget with revenue, so like that revenue projections is forthcoming, and that. I mean, obviously, it's very much estimates, it's very approximate, but you know, like I go to the assessor and I ask him, what are we looking for growth? He tries to do the best he can, we're conservative in that, and so that really kind of drives, as even the charter dictates, that really drives the rest of the process. You kind of start with how much money you think you're gonna have. And then that's also gonna obviously influence the decision making down the line. If certain departments, and I'll just speak to it, the school department, they're our biggest department. So if I have a certain underwhelming projection for revenue, then everyone needs to know that as soon as possible so that we can sort of set our expectations accordingly. I mean, y'all know, like, as far as growth goes, we're relatively stable. I mean, and it has been like that, which is good, because since like Market Basket sort of like came to fruition, there's a little bit more to be done in that Manor Crossing shopping center, but like really, growth is gonna be relatively stable. And so people should not expect there's gonna be like a huge windfall. It's gonna be, yeah, there's gonna be constraints.
Any thoughts on this, or are we happy with the content and good to move forward? All right, let's notify the finance committee and we'll.
Okay.
Bring it up and approve it. At a subsequent meeting.
Is anyone, are you okay with me sharing this current draft?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that's the what I'm getting from the board. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Moving on to 11A, select board goals. I think we. Said if we have comments on the goals, please reach out to town administrator. Greg, did you receive any comments?
I hate putting people on the spot. No.
Okay, well, no, you're putting all 5 of us on the spot.
Yeah, I
No?
told you to get you comments, and I never
You-
did,
yeah.
I ran out of time.
Put one of us on the spot, that's not great, but if you put all 5 of us, because
Yeah.
we didn't fill that, then I'm okay with that.
I have a couple like small changes.
So what, yeah, because I don't want this to linger on for too much longer. Do we want to take another 2 weeks? Do we want to have a more robust discussion now? do we want, take another 2 weeks? Is that what I'm getting?
I would like to, I mean, it was certainly
Yeah,
my
no,
intent.
I think we've had various people travel, we were out for the summer, so
Yeah.
great, then let's take another 2 weeks, take another review and same action item for all. Or get your commentary to the town administrator.
Got it.
Okay, sounds good to me. Any other comments on that before we
The
move on?
only point is that the comments presumably should be, as we discussed the last time, sort of find ways to make these more measurable and specific.
Yep.
And
Yep,
Right, and easily communicable to people reading, yeah.
sounds good. All right, very good. All right, so no significant change other than giving ourselves a little bit more time. 12, special town meeting, October 7th. What's that?
I'm sorry, I cut you off. I said it is definitely happening where it's very real now. I'm sorry, but Mr. Chair, go on.
No, go ahead. I wasn't gonna set too much more up. I think we. Note here, so we have the division, or proposed division of who will be presenting each article.
That's right, so typically the board decides amongst yourselves how you want to split up the presentations and which really. Again, like no one expects the board to be the subject matter expert, so traditionally, individual board members. For those particular articles that are sponsored by the board, which is the majority, and in this case, I think all but. One or two are, all but two are sponsored by the board. You say the motion. And then the town moderator allows for a presentation, so that's something that's seen on the screen, but there will be a little script, and then it kind of opens it up to the floor. And then a subject matter expert can speak to any questions. So all I did is I took the 8 articles, I put them in a little spreadsheet like I usually do. And then I looked at what the town moderator, he likes to break down whether it's singular votes or discussed together or consent agenda. So I just used that as a reference, and then I just sort of assigned people. But I did go with the chair being the first person. But you can fight amongst yourselves. If there's one you really want to do, or if you want to change it up, this is me I just assigned people. The only ones I doubled up on is the use of the retained earnings from the water and sewer enterprises. I gave that to poor Chris. But depends, so I don't know, it's up to you guys. If you have personal preferences.
looks fine to me.
Yeah, and just to note, I still am planning on drafting a message very much along the lines of what we put out before the last town meeting. Just from the select board on all those major projects, so should look pretty similar with just updates on those bullet points. Ideally, and perhaps in alignment with our goals in time for annual town meeting, I think giving a PowerPoint presentation for the major budget, but I don't know if that's as appropriate for a relatively small amendment to the budget here, so it's just letting you know where my head's at.
Forgive me for,
Go ahead.
maybe not checking from the last meeting, the item number 8, the home rule petition, special legislation liquor license for the Maynard Corner Store. Why is that going to the special town meeting and not to the other processes? I don't understand that one.
All right, so yeah, that's okay. So in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, it's the legislature that determines how many liquor licenses
Right.
each town has. Right? I apologize if this, I'm not trying to patronize you.
Yes, no,
So like if you, so it's not up to individual municipalities to decide how many package stores or restaurants or whatever. Farmers licenses, whatever. So like that quotas, like how many you can have is determined by the state legislature. So if you want to change that, there has to be an act of the legislature done. So you're the petitioning, because you want a home rule petition, that's what it's called, to the state, but it comes from voters. So the voters have to say, yeah, I allow for the select board to submit this.
okay.
But even as, and you weren't here, but the board considered and it was kind of an application from the owner of the corner store and his representative. It's not all that controversial, but like it, I think, and I can see why it's appropriate.
No, I understand it now, I just wasn't.
Oh, okay.
That being said, let's talk about that one, because I think
Yes.
the general feeling I picked up from the board last time is that we're happy to sponsor it, but the true defense and explain the motivation to the public should be the responsibility of the corner store themselves. And you see it from the message from the town moderator, he's willing any combination where we simply move the article and they present, or we move the article, we can give a brief presentation, just simply throw to them for questions, I think are the two main paths to go forward. Lindsay, looks like you've been assigned that article, so I'm open to your input, or even if you wanna, get away from that one.
Ask some questions already about it.
I think.
No, I mean, it sounds like I'm just reading it, and if there are specific questions that I can answer, I will refer to them in
I
the
think
subject
the
matter.
question is, do we want to invite them up to give a presentation, or do we want to
Yeah.
simply throw to them if questions come from the audience? I'm pretty neutral on this.
So I'm curious, I'm not sure that that was in this exchange with Dick Downey, but what would the content of the presentation be?
So I would think we would just want to make sure that we have it, or at least Greg can see it beforehand, or just invite them to give a very brief verbal update. This is what we're planning to do, something along those lines, and make sure that,
Dick is usually like, he, as we've been over this, it's, but in a board meeting, but like, it doesn't usually have like a hard and fast as how long, how many slides or whatever the case. It's usually does it sort of case by case. But as you referenced, yeah, he's kind of leaving it up to you. Do you want, and I think that was very clever suggestion, would you like me to invite the applicant at the next meeting? Would you have one more regular?
so I'm saying if do we want to invite the applicant not to give a full slide presentation, but at town meeting, come up and say,
Right.
here's who we are, we want to give a brief, pretty much the same that we asked them when they were up here last time. I'm not expecting any change to what they stated there.
Yeah, that's fine too. I didn't know if you were, but I appreciate the clarification. If you want to hear like a rehearsal from them beforehand, but if
I think they were pretty clear.
I
They
think a
were
slide or two.
I'm open to that, so I'm open to what the board wants on that.
Yeah, I think the main issue with this is that nobody's gonna have any idea what home rule petition is, with the exception of some people in the room.
Yeah.
So people are not gonna understand what's being asked of them. They're gonna think that they're voting on a liquor license.
It's true.
And so my recommendation or preference would be that we, if they are going to make a presentation, provide a slide, whatever, it gives a little bit of explanation of
Okay.
what people are being asked to vote on in simple layman's terms.
Okay.
Saying there's only so many liquor licenses the town is allowed to have, that the state allows.
Yeah.
We want to go petition the state for the town to have one more so that we can have one.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, if Lindsay wants to present the select board
You did
slide
so
from that,
good.
and they can either.
What?
Just did it.
Yeah, if you could write that down for them and they could say it. Yeah, and it's because what I am worried about is that people don't understand what they're voting on, which I don't know that they will, because this is lengthy description in the article, that they're gonna think that it's gonna look like we are sponsoring advocacy for another liquor license, and that's actually a separate conversation. Right?
But that'll be up to the board, but the state, we went over this last time with Russell's, this came up with
Yeah.
Russell's, although I don't remember if we had Jamie present at town meeting.
We did not, but the last time I remember well, I guess Jamie did, there was a big request. I think we went for like 5 of them back when Park Street
Yeah,
was first coming in.
Yeah.
Those were restaurant licenses.
And they were, and that's the other thing is, I guess Jamie's, I hadn't recalled that Jamie's was for a specific restaurant. The other ones that I remember doing
that's right.
were just general into the bucket, so we have more to be able to develop and to be able to. But this being a specific
But they've got-
restaurant,
And,
Sorry,
and
conclude your
we
thoughts.
learned from Jamie's that the state needed to see the address. So I was incorrect in my initial presumption.
That's right.
That I thought like, it'll still be up to the board. Like, just because they approve it at the quota at town meeting, doesn't mean the board says that's specifically going. I thought you were just including the quota, but then the legislature said, no, they wanted to see.
that was an issue back with 129 Parker too, because they wanted just liquor licenses for them, but they didn't have an address, they didn't have a business, they didn't have anything, and so we couldn't do it, so that, I think the town petitioned generally for more liquor licenses with the anticipation that we were going to need them to distribute at some point in the future.
So then, let's just let Lindsay give the presentation more or less along the line she said, verbal or one slide, on the kind of technical aspects of that to the walk-town meeting through. And then if people have questions relative to the business, we can just throw to them as subject matter experts.
Yeah, sure. Am I making the presentation?
Yeah, by presentation is a very big word for what
It is.
you just said.
Wait, hold on, let me give you some back, okay. Alright, so at this point, this will be my 13th town meeting with you guys. I don't know, it's twice a year. So this is how it works. Here's how the sausage is made, here's the background, okay. Once y'all have decided what articles y'all wanna do, right? Actually, it doesn't really matter. I'm still gonna make the PowerPoint slide. And I give a deadline, as I already have, to those other groups. So, I told the superintendent's office I needed a PowerPoint. I told the CPC I needed a PowerPoint. But even CPC, it's just the same slide, really. It's a different sort of like spreadsheet that we do with it. And then, so I make the PowerPoint, but then I provide y'all with a little script that you can read and it goes along with the slides. So it's like, don't overthink it. I mean, if there's something in particular you wanna see in there, like, this is really good
Yeah,
feedback.
I'm just gonna wait to hear from you.
No,
Honestly,
but like,
I'm good.
if you don't like,
Totally fine.
yeah, if you don't like what you see, say what you want.
Totally fine, I will.
Oh,
I don't even accept it.
Roger, is this relevant to the conversation that we're having right now? All right.
Roger, do you have a question?
Roger, if you're speaking, we can't hear you, so we're happy, of course, as always, you can email us. All right,
Stand down.
all right, I think we're clear on 8. So I would like to talk about solid waste and recycling services, or at least the presentation thereof. I don't know if I want to talk about solid waste and recycling, but I want to talk about how we're going to present that to the town. I see Mike has this one. We talked about this a bit last, if you don't mind. What are we thinking of a presentation? Is that what we're doing?
So that's a good question. What do you think?
We just met at 5 o'clock today, was our meeting, our first meeting since our last presentation to the board. Our focus today, was on some stakeholder questions from Green Maynard, as we work towards town meeting. We also look for, support in that process. Our focus today was, a succinct presentation that includes 3 PowerPoint pages, focusing on the enterprise fund only. We should have that templated draft to you within a week. And then we're open to comments, concerns, questions. You let us know and we can make edits to them as well. But our goal is to speak strictly 98% on the enterprise fund.
That's wise. I was out of hand at the last meeting, going down the path to. the
Everybody
next step,
knows.
So.
I will also say that most likely will happen at town meeting. Our job is, I don't wanna necessarily stonewall it, because then that looks like non-transparency, but we're gonna circle back to where it is. We have a nice, little picture diagram that just kind of looks at the 5 pillars of solid waste, with finance being one of them, and we're gonna focus on, that's why we're here, is this pillar, while we work and finish through the rest.
Who will be doing the presentation? Is that Juanita like last time or?
So I just found out today that Juanita, it will not be there for a town meeting. So Meg was volunteered. And she pushed back a little bit, but I think maybe we'll end up doing it, and then I'll be there. But I have to be called upon, as you all know, but I encourage Meg, if there's questions or comments, please just call upon me, so.
That sounds good, and okay, just want to make sure that we highlight kind of the depth of all the different perspectives that you had, and the depth of the community outreach that you've done, and just make sure we highlight that, which I'm sure you will, but 3 slides is a short amount of time, to put a lot of content in
So we
there.
didn't want to do too much. I will tell you that we did not put anything on there about public outreach to this factor. But if you want us to re-engage that back into a town meeting slide, we can absolutely do that.
I think there's benefit, but I'm open to the feedback from the task force and from the select board as well. It's you can always speak to it verbally and not have it on the slide.
That was my thought process, was if that was a contentious point, then we could easily speak to that point. I just didn't want a huge convoluted PowerPoint presentation.
It's a
I
good
don't think
instinct.
we should highlight the results of the survey, but just acknowledging that there was a survey and people have the opportunity to weigh in.
I'm wondering if it would be helpful to do kind of like a season preview. Where, you know, you indicate what might be coming without sort of giving away the excitement of what the plot. How it's actually gonna work out, because we don't know that yet.
So I think that was what we gave the select board as a PowerPoint presentation. But then the comments that we received was that might be too much information for town meeting. So I then go back to, I know Mike, you were away, and my condolences.
Thank you.
If you didn't get an opportunity to look at our PowerPoint presentation about a month ago, I encourage you to relook at it and then provide those comments too, because a lot of. the
Wasn't that
feedback
just
we
2 weeks
received-
ago?
It might have been, yeah, Dave, I'm here almost every day. Yeah, it was about 2 weeks ago.
Days a week.
I would say that that was our original presentation, but I think the focus, to Jeff's point is, we can go down a rabbit hole that we're not asking town meetings to necessarily focus on, we're asking an enterprise fund. So when I say like 98% is enterprise fund, I leave the door open for a comment on the floor to indicate where we are in those processes. So again, I'm open to, if you want more. I also know I've dealt with the moderator quite often, many times. You may not want something so grand as what we present. Select board.
I think your instincts are good, and it's hard to predict what town meeting's gonna wanna hear about. That's the real challenge of pre-preparing content, so. But I think the full task force, when they were here, just 2 weeks ago, was able to respond to technical questions from multiple angles, so.
And we'll do the same. We have done an extensive outreach to a lot of major group stakeholders that we know will be present at town meeting that would have potentially either been in opposition or non-question. So we're trying to do a targeted education piece in advance.
Okay.
So I think we'll, if we run into hurdles, something we can answer them too.
All right, any other feedback on that one? I think the direction that they're going in looks good to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Those were the only ones I wanted to talk about in more detail. Anybody else want to talk about any of the presentations, the articles, the assignments? All right, any other overall direction for special town meeting as we approach it? All right, very good. Moving on to item 13, which is the senior center. I know Jack had reached out to me, letting me know the group is planned to come to our next meeting on October 1st for a presentation. Any further updates from that particular group?
No, I'm gonna note from Jerry today, so they were finalizing the slides for that presentation today.
Okay.
And they look forward to presenting them to the committee this Thursday night with the meeting, so they're gonna, the subcommittee's gonna present those to the full committee. This week, and look for a vote of approval on the slides. Unofficially, Jerry says that they're waiting on some lease estimates from 141 Parker Street. It's ballpark lease estimates, nothing official, nothing set in stone. And then Thursday night, they'll also be talking about this meeting about social media efforts and how the members of the senior center committee think they should or could be handled, that being social media efforts. And that's about it for that one that I know of.
Okay, I would like to reserve votes for formal votes that we need things on. I'm happy to, get a sense of where we are relative to providing as much direction and support as possible, but want to make sure that we're reserving votes for formal occurrences.
In the committee,
No, for us.
yeah.
Oh, they're voting.
They are
for their own
voting.
slides.
They are
Got it.
voting. They're
Sorry, I
voting.
misunderstood. Totally
Yeah,
fine.
no, we're not voting.
Totally
They're
fine.
voting. The
Understood.
senior center
Sorry.
committee is gonna vote
Got
on
it.
whether or not everybody in the room likes the
Yeah.
questions of
No, that makes complete sense.
the
All
slide.
right, very good.
And as far as the Green Meadow school building project goes, it's, driving by, everyone can see there's a lot of activity going on. It's still working towards securing the areas of the site that need to be secure and safe for, pedestrians, and everybody else. Putting up some, different types of, environmental barriers and fencing and whatnot. And then, they're also, at this point, they have a group of the folks involved in that committee that have started the process of working with the planning committee, the members of the planning committee. And as a result of that, we have scheduled a special meeting on Monday, the 23rd, to specifically discuss replacement of trees that are being, relocated or moved, taken down as part of the project. So, is it a 1-for-1? Who's counting the trees? Whose numbers real? Whose numbers not? All that stuff is kind of up in the air. So we're gonna meet and talk about that Monday. And that's really just everything's moving forward. They're you know, there's still planning going on, there's still design stuff going on. But now they're fully engaged with, the planning, planning committee, planning board. And that's it.
Please go ahead.
Did Steve Silverstein left, did they solve the issues with like the deliveries at drop off and pick up? There were like
When I talked-
wheelers driving through the parking lot, little kids, the fence was open.
I
There
talked
were
to
a
the
bunch of things in
superintendent.
the first week.
Yeah, I can't speak to
Yeah.
the current situation, but the superintendent had told me that they were planning on shifting, proposing some shifting of, who was parked where to be staff or the parent teacher drop off. They're doing the best they can without the expectation that it will be perfectly frictionless, but they try to increase supervision, separate who's parking where and to pick up the drop off. It sounded like to me in my just to gloss over my understanding of it, it sounded like to me, there needed to be some more on-site supervision and and the superintendent, that is what he said. But
Okay.
as of, I couldn't tell you what it looked like today.
Okay, well, I was there today. I didn't see anything, similar to what
Okay,
was there 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
But yeah, and when you say on-site management, you mean from like the project manager, not the school, right? That's not their
I
responsibility.
actually thought a little bit of both. I wanted, if I was the principal, I would want to make sure, if I was responsible for the. Yeah, that's what the superintendent side. I'm just saying, like, if I was in issues, I would want to make sure I had my people's eyes on. Ultimately,
Okay.
I would be responsible for like the health and safety of
Correct,
workers.
the school should absolutely be taking responsibility here.
Okay.
So I heard the same thing. My understanding is the superintendent did take corrective action in response to that, so
Great.
that's good. Would have been nice to have in the first
Yeah.
place, but.
Yeah.
Let's get it in place and have it be a lesson learned for the
Yeah,
future.
it was all very seriously taken, and I think the superintendent's office did appreciate that instantaneous feedback. I mean, like, yeah, you have to address these things as they come, and I think they did. But if you have any other questions, of course, we can bring it up.
So are we comfortable at the moment that there is good line of communication between the principal and the project manager?
I'm not involved in that, I can find out.
Better than it was before the incident.
I can just speak to, we have weekly on-site meetings of major stakeholders, which it does include the Green Meadow principal. There was a pre-site walkthrough with the contractor and the schools. Logistically, all of that work was done well in advance of timing schedules based on school. I think until it went through, with some inefficiencies that was clearly focused on at the beginning, but there was always a communication. Tell you far in advance.
Because the last project I was involved in, the project manager was coming in
Yeah,
like 2 or 3 times a week to the principal's office. And
yeah. That line of communication is steady. That's a small subgroup, to Chris's point. Within our bigger committee, we have subgroups. One of the major subgroups is the pre-site now, which includes all of public safety, DPW, fire, police, principal, assistant principal. That's a weekly occurrence meeting.
All right. Moving on to, if there's nothing else on 14.
No, that's it.
All right, moving on to 15 correspondences. There are 2 this evening, including an announcement of the beginning of the accreditation or re-accreditation process for the police department starting next month. Any comments? All right, good luck to the police department.
Move to accept correspondences A and B as shown.
Second.
All in favor? Very good. We have 1 set of minutes this evening. Any comments on the minutes from September 4th? Would you like to make a motion?
Move to accept and approve the meeting minutes of September 4th, 2024, as shown, and authorizing the use of digital signatures if approved.
Second.
All in favor? Very good. Town administrator report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey, we do have a new clerk starting. It's exciting. Next week.
Congratulations.
Wednesday. I'm thrilled. So when you all get a chance, I'm sure you'll see her. I mean, you definitely see her at town meeting, so like she'll be on stage real quick. And then, but she's not new, so to speak. Y'all might have already met her. It's Melissa Pelletier. Thank you. And she's been sort of helping out. She was already coming with our town clerk staff previously, but only so much as like just being on hand. So yeah, I think it'll be a smooth transition. And then separately, I plan on attending Monday's what's new in municipal law hosted by Division of Local Services, which is a branch of the Department of Revenue, and that's at Pembroke University. I'm sure it'll be thrilling, really exciting municipal finance regulations, but it's important to do finance team, some members are planning on going as well, so it's good professional development. And then town offices are expected, I'm planning on closing those town offices for a couple hours on Tuesday, October 1st, to do, we usually do this, it's got a nice time of year to get outside, we host a little training, with luncheon out back, along the water. So I look forward to that, and then I was grateful, and I included some pictures for the board, in the TA report, I was grateful that Senator Eldridge and his team came out with a big check for $500,000, which is appropriately a big check's worth, and that was over at the Route 27 intersection project, so it was a good little turnout. I appreciated the attendance, got some questions answered, took some quick pictures, so it was well worth it. And then lastly, I do want to definitely appreciate the fire department for hosting the 9/11 ceremony last week. I allowed town staff to close their office if they wanted to for an hour, and a lot of people took me up on that, so they walked down to the fire station, we took a quick, the little ceremony, little pop of circumstance. It was a beautiful day, so I appreciate the fire department hosting that. And that's it, there was a bunch in there, so barring any questions, that's my report.
Any questions to the town administrator? All right, very good. I have nothing from the chair report this evening, so I think we covered everything during the meeting. We'll go to board member reports, starting with Chris.
Just want to recognize our police chief for his 30th
Yeah.
year, 30th year.
This week?
This past week,
This
he celebrated
month.
30th year this month.
Okay, thank you, my check-in with him is on Friday, so I'll get that.
So he's not here this week anyway, he's off playing Chiefs conference.
He's not here.
Chiefs conference this week.
Oh, what a convenient time to schedule a department meeting.
But they did it, I think they had a little, even a little plaque or trophy
Okay.
or something last Friday or something.
Okay.
But anyways, 30 years is quite a long time to be in one job, so.
Yeah.
Congratulations to that. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Lindsay.
Congrats and thank you to the chief. Beyond that, I just think there's a lot of stuff coming up in the next couple weeks or month or so in Maynard, so encourage people to participate. Maynard Fest, bocce tournament, sponsored by Maynard.
That's weekend,
No, that's in October. October 19th, yep, there's the Fall Fest, there's just a lot going on, so get out there, get involved while the weather's nice, because then we're all gonna be trapped inside.
On that uplifting note, we'll go to David.
Yes, Chris stole my congratulations to the chief, so I wanted to echo. But also, along the same line, I want to congratulate the Public Safety Department as a whole, the police and all of those who responded. For those who know, there was a brief emergency missing student in the last week. And the reaction was incredible from what it appeared. I heard about the missing kid, and about 20 minutes later, I'm hearing the police action has begun and everything else. It was an amazing response. I did send a text to the chief congratulating him on the response and the actions, but not only the chief and the fire and all the parties that were involved, but the community involvement was incredible as well. From the first notice of that situation. Then secondly, I know that there was a fire, at least I don't know how detailed, how serious the fire was, but at Babico's or either Babico's or the laundromat, where apparently our staff again responded quickly. There was mutual assistance from Acton, at least, from what I understand. And again, so our guys and women are working it, and they should be commended for it. They do a lot of work on behalf of the community, keeping us safe. So I just wanted to recognize that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, yes, so I also echo my congratulations for the police chief and the department as a whole. And on that subject of public safety, there was an unfortunate incident. You may recall back in the late spring or early summer, when there were some demonstrations with a pro-Palestinian group, and we had some pro-Israeli groups, and there was one person who was present there who at the time demonstrated some threatening behavior, which was reported to our local police department. And that person was involved in a shooting incident down in Newton on Friday.
The victim or
The person who was reported for aggressive behavior here in Maynard, he allegedly shot
Okay.
another protester at an incident in Newton. He was arrested and then released on bail. So there are obviously people in Maynard who are concerned about this. I don't have any reason to believe that there's any imminent threat to those people. But I'm going to mention it to Greg, and I'm hoping to meet with the police chief. And again, it's not about whether or not there really is an immediate threat, just to highlight an awareness that when these kind of events happen, there is the possibility of high risk to some people who are present. So hopefully it's something that will not affect us and impact us. More than I say that, but there are some residents who are deeply concerned about this person's behavior. So regardless of one's opinions about gun rights and self-defense laws, this is something that does indeed have an impact on our residents, and I think it's just important that our safety people are aware of that.
Thank you. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
That is
Sorry
frightening.
to
No,
end on
I
a darker note, but
was unaware that.
Lindsay really killed the mood.
Well,
if somebody's got anything a bit more upbeat,
that is,
Weather.
well, it is frightening, but our police department has responded to a number of high risk situations over the last couple of years with both speed and professionalism. And if
right.
prior results are any indication, I'm sure they will
Yeah.
pass the reaccreditation flying colors. I know that they take that very seriously and put a lot of time into that, and that in turn results in the professional service that we just spoke about. So I'm glad to see that continued level of professionalism from the police department, and I'll of course pass on my congratulations to the chief for his 30 years as well.
Yeah.
That being said, next meeting is October 1st, and
I will move to adjourn.
Seconded.
all in favor?